Oh, great. Another Peacock game. Yay. Welcome, everybody, to JG9 News, where we talk all things NFL all the time. I'm Jared Garnett, representing the 904 from the 602, and today we are talking about something that was announced during the meetings down in Orlando this week for the 2024 season regarding broadcasting, because Peacock, you know you love them, they are back. They are broadcasting a game exclusively for 2024. We speculated which network would get the Brazil game in week 1 on Friday night. That Friday Brazil game between the Philadelphia Eagles and a yet-to-be-determined team. Probably the Cleveland Browns, though it could be the Green Bay Packers. It's going to be one of those two. We have it down to those two at least. But whoever they play, whoever the Eagles play, it is going to be exclusively on Peacock. It will not be on Prime. It will not be on CBS, Fox, ESPN, any of those. I thought it could have been Prime because they don't have a game week 1. But it will be on Peacock, which means that NBC has 3 games that they're working that week. They have the Thursday night game, the opening game of the season, the Sunday Night Football Thursday game with the Chiefs against whoever they play, Friday night in Brazil, and then Sunday Night Football. They will have 3 games in week 1. This, according to the press release put out by NBC Sports Group, according to Rick Cordella, the president of NBC Sports, he said, "It's exciting for Peacock to exclusively showcase the NFL's first ever regular season game in Brazil as part of NBC Sports' unprecedented presentation of 3 primetime games on the NFL's opening weekend. Peacock continues to deliver the best experience in sports streaming, as this scheme will follow this summer's Paris Olympics and Paralympics, which will have every event live streamed on the surface." And Hans Schrader, the NFL Executive Vice President of Media Distribution, said on this, "As media consumption habits evolve, the NFL continues to work with our partners to put our games on digital platforms where our fans are increasingly spending their time. The historic wildcard game on Peacock in January was a viewership success, and we look forward to continuing our strong streaming distribution with the opening weekend game in Brazil on Peacock." Last year, Peacock had 2 exclusive games. They had a game between the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Chargers on a Saturday night, and then they had the first ever streaming exclusive playoff game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Miami Dolphins. And what this means is that if you are in Philadelphia, or you are in Cleveland or Green Bay, whichever team gets the Peacock game in Brazil, you get the game on local TV. You don't have to pay for Peacock. You get the game on local TV. But if you are not in one of those cities, you have to pay if you want to watch that game and you want to watch the Brazil game take place. So, raises a few questions. First off, what are my thoughts on this? Well, if you've watched my channel before, you know my thoughts on exclusively streamed games. I don't really like it. I don't like it. I don't like the fact that fans have to pay money to watch games. I don't like the fact that if you live in rural America, places with poor internet, you are completely out of luck versus something like TV where you have options at least and where you have a stable connection for the most part. Now, it's different with Amazon Prime because more people have Prime than cable. And on top of that, Prime, if they did this game, would be setting their top crew so they don't have to spread themselves thin. On top of that, the streaming quality on Prime is pretty good. The videos we saw from fans last year with Peacock, there were many videos where they were unable to watch the game. Bars weren't able to get the game. People were having trouble with the interface. It's an interesting streaming service, to say the least. So I'm not crazy about this in the slightest bit. Raises the other question, who is working this game? Who is going to work the Peacock game? Now, obviously, the top crew is Mike Tirico on play-by-play, Chris Collinsworth on color commentary. They're working the opening game with the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to be working the Sunday Night Football game in week 1. There is no way that they will be working the Brazil game on Friday. I know Mike Tirico worked 2 games in 2 days, so theoretically it's possible. But remember, that was in Kansas City, and then he worked on Sunday night in Detroit. There is no possible way you can get Mike Tirico from wherever the Thursday Night Football game is week 1, which will be Kansas City, barring anything nuts, to Sao Paulo, getting him to Brazil, and then having him come back and do a game on Sunday. It would just not be possible. And you sever the bridge with Al Michaels. You're not going to send him to Brazil. That's done. So in all likelihood, you're going to have the number 2 crew of Noah Eagle and Todd Blackledge on the call, like you did last year for Bengals Steelers, when that was the game before the Chargers Bills game, and then the Browns Texans wildcard game right before the game between the Chiefs and the Dolphins. They might be saying, wait a sec, wouldn't that impact Big Ten Saturday night? Because NBC has the rights to show the Big Ten on Saturday nights, and that's the number 1 crew there. You're going to take them off Big Ten Saturday night? Yes, you can absolutely do that. That's not an issue. For one, the ratings will be better for the Brazil game than they will be for Big Ten Saturday night. On top of that, there's no real good games that week in the Big Ten on paper. If there's ever a week for Noah Eagle and Todd Blackledge to miss, it's that one. I know people are saying, what about Texas, Michigan? What about Texas, Michigan? You have a game between two teams that made it to the playoff last year. What about that? Well, that's not on NBC. Believe me, if that was on NBC, we'd be having a whole different conversation. You probably put Eagle and Blackledge on that game on Saturday night, and then you figure something out with Brazil. But Texas, Michigan, the Longhorns AD made it seem, based on his statements, like this was a noon game on Fox. So the only real attractive game in week 2 for the college football season is on a different network. Week 2 is usually the weakest week for college football, and this is no exception besides Texas, Michigan. So I don't even know what the Saturday night game would be that Eagle and Blackledge would work if you kept them in the States. Colorado, Nebraska, Iowa State, Iowa, Western Michigan, Ohio State, Boise State, Oregon. I don't know what game you're putting on there. You can afford to have Eagle and Blackledge call this game and miss 1 week for the Big Ten. So my guess is Noah Eagle and Todd Blackledge, a great pairing. They will call the game in Brazil. Now, I also want to talk about the press release itself besides the statements I said, because this was a pretty interesting press release if you look between the fine lines. Now, keep in mind, at these meetings, Amazon, it was announced that they were getting an exclusive game for the wild card round. For the first time ever, you're going to have a playoff game take place on Amazon, which is something that I've speculated for quite some time. Peacock said nothing about that. This press release only contained the Brazil game. They did not mention anything about getting a playoff game for the 2024 season, so January of 2025. And they announced the Peacock playoff game right around the same time last year. If you look back at press releases from 2023, they announced the Peacock playoff game in spring of 2023. So it's not as though they announced it in August or September. No, they announced it around this same time. But nothing in this press release says that Peacock is getting a playoff game. So maybe NBC won't be getting a Peacock game now. NBC, you figure someone's got to give because Prime's getting a playoff game. They're in the rotation. Fox has to get one. CBS has to get one. ABC and ESPN have to get one. NBC only gets 2 wildcard games instead of 3 at the absolute max, so maybe they won't be putting a game on Peacock as a result. On top of that, I love this part of the press release that says, the NFL is the only sports league that presents all regular season and postseason games on free, over-the-air television in local markets. I love that, considering the grand irony in this, they have to pay money if you're out of market to watch the games on Peacock. I absolutely love that. Look at how great the NFL is. Look at how great they are. All the games are free for people. Look at how great of a job they're doing and the service they're doing for the fans. Oh, by the way, if you want to watch this game and you don't live in one of those local markets, too bad. You're going to have to pay up and buy our streaming service. Crazy. But what's also weird about this is that in the press release, Peacock talked about the postseason, and they mentioned nothing about a wild card game whatsoever. It says in the press release, Peacock will once again stream all NBC Sunday Night Football games in 2024, including the playoffs and the Football Night in America studio show. It didn't mention anything about an exclusive playoff game. All it said was that it's going to stream all the NBC playoff games. Didn't mention anything that they were getting an exclusive game, even though it talked later in the press release about how great of a ratings juggernaut that Chiefs-Dolphins game was for them, how many subscriptions they got, how well they did off that, and I did a video on that a few days ago on JJ9 News. Go check that out if you haven't already. I'll leave a link in the upper right corner and a link in the description down below. But what we do know, again, Peacock will be getting the Brazil game between the Philadelphia Eagles and whoever they play, whether it's Cleveland or Green Bay. It's going to be Peacock exclusive, just like they had last year. Not crazy about it, but you figure Noah Eagle, Todd Blackledge on the call, and at least it's a week 1 game versus a wild card game if it's any consolation whatsoever. Not that I'm excited about this in the slightest bit. But what are your thoughts on the Peacock game? Do you like the move? Do you not like the move? Are you surprised that Amazon Prime did not get this game? Who do you think the Brazil game is going to be between? Do you think it's going to be Eagles-Packers or Eagles-Browns? Who do you think works this game? Do you think it's going to be Noah Eagle, Todd Blackledge? Do you think they get Al Michaels to go down to Brazil? What do you think they do? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. That's going to do for this episode of JJ9 News. Be sure you like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check my main channel, JaguarGare9, where we talk all things NFL history all the time. Until next time, this is JaguarGare9 signing off. And as always, go Jags.